Today, let's talk about money flows and what's going on in the world to see if we can't make sense about this, especially around our treasuries and the dollar, okay? So, Israel attacks Iran. Oil goes up in price, basically about, let's say, $15, just for argument's sake. What do most people in the world buy their oil in? They buy it in dollars, okay? So if the price of oil goes up, can we make the assumption that other countries, other companies are going to need more dollars to pay for the oil? And I would argue that yes, that is what happened. And that is why when the oil price goes up, so does the dollar. Now, yesterday it was up 12 cents, and today it's up a whole 24 cents. I don't think it ended up 12 cents. So here we are in a situation where normally, last 85 years, when oil goes up in price, so does the dollar. And in this case, it didn't go up at all. And then this is some kind of political crisis. How big you think it is or how big it could come, we can talk about that, but it's a political crisis. And in every political crisis in the last 85 years, yes, they come in and they buy the US dollar, which obviously they're not doing, but when they buy the dollar, they come in and they buy our bonds. Now, this is not the price, this is the yield. And when this all started, we were around 435. We hit 442 yesterday. Today we're at basically 440, 441. But again, it's not doing what it normally does for, reasons that we're going to try to ascertain. Now, last week we had a auction by the Federal Reserve. And here you can see it. We raised $60 billion or whatever it is. Yeah, $60 billion. And you can sit here and go through. Now, all these things of non-competitive, competitive, primary, direct, and indirect, I'll give you the explanation. So here's your primary, direct, and indirect. You can stop and read this to understand who bids on it. And here's a brief explanation of the non-competitive and competitive bidders. Again, stop and read at your leisure. But that's not what we want to talk about, because as we did in our prior video about percent and treasury, they're now jumping into the market and they're buying secondary issues, okay? So issues that are out there. And they can't hold an auction, so they have to say, hey, we're going to buy this, whatever, okay? And in this case, they told the market, look, we're going to buy this 2-year bond back, all right? And all you have to do is submit your bid for us to pay you the money. So we're going to buy it back from you. Now, the interesting thing here is down the bottom. There were 40 issues that were eligible, and only 18 were accepted for 10 million. But they had 18 billion. So $18 billion was submitted for the Treasury to buy back, and they took 10, all right? And these issues that they accepted are coming due on 5/31/27. So here's our Treasury, again, buying another $10 billion in the open market. But the one thing I can't explain is why are they going for the short end? Are we really in that much trouble that they're buying the short end? And this is like the third one in a row that we've done on the short end. Why? Why aren't they buying the 10-year? I don't think anyone knows. And by the way, if you notice something, Treasury isn't talking about this. Percent's not talking about that. Now, let's see what they are talking about. So we've done, 5 or 6 videos on SLR. Supplemental leverage ratio that came in after the great financial crisis, where our banks have to keep more money with the Fed to cover their trades. And Percent has said that he wants to change that. He wants to get rid of it. So in other words, the Basel III that everyone's implementing around the world, this is where you have your RWAs, your risk-weighted assets, okay? And so the Fed says if you do a unlisted derivative, then you have to have this much capital. If you do a listed derivative, you have a little less, but this is the capital that you need, okay? So in other words, with the SLR, they just say, how big is your book? And this is what the interest rate is. So you could sit there and say, well, we could underweight it if treasuries are being bought by the bank, right? So you don't have to put up as much as you do for an unlisted derivative or triple B bond. But that's not what we're proposing. Bessent is saying no, absolutely zero money down to buy U.S. treasuries. So our banks don't have to put up 1 penny to buy billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of treasuries. Not a dime, okay? But if that is not wild enough, it is now being proposed by Senator Ted Cruz that our banks, they're required by law to keep X percent, around 4%, with the Federal Reserve, okay? These are the reserves. And to keep them there, we pay them interest. And today, it's around 440, okay? So, Ted Cruz says you still have to keep your reserves with the Federal Reserve, but we pay you no interest on your reserve. None. Zero. Okay? That'll save us $1 trillion a year. Forget that it may bring down the entire U.S. financial system, but it saves us $1 trillion a year. I don't know if this is going to go through. The mere fact that they're discussing it raises questions of how bad is the liquidity in the markets today. Now, in the last couple of videos, we talked about M2 at all-time highs. It continues to make all-time highs, M2, okay? But this is the velocity of M2. And as you can see, it goes down there, and now it's starting to move back up. So you say, okay, well, this is good, right? Well, there is a lot of discussion around M2 velocity. And there are people out there who make the contention that when foreigners use less of our dollars, our velocity goes up. This is our velocity. This is not the global velocity, okay? So there is an inverse relationship. As countries use the dollar less, our velocity of M2, which is all of the liquidity, goes up. And it makes sense to me because when people are using our dollars, they're using them for trade or reserves. So they're not turning them over like we turn over our money here. So what this is showing us is that, yes, people are buying less of our treasuries, and we're seeing that in our yields. And so our M2 and domestically is showing that it's moving up when it's really kind of showing that the world is moving down against us. Now we all know that we have huge financing needs. It's one good thing is that we're talking about it. I always believe when we talk about it, we can resolve it. It's when we don't talk about it when we can't resolve it, okay? So we know that we're minimum $7 trillion, $6 trillion in the next 5 months, okay? That's without the tax bill. With the tax bill, that goes up, what, 2.4 trillion, whatever it is, all right? But here's the rub. We're not the only people in the market. Here's our hedge funds and private equity, anybody, right? Here's their debt that they have to roll, okay? Now we have somewhere between 6 and 9 trillion over the next 6 months. Look at these numbers in the top left-hand corner. Look at the days. From 0 to 1 day, 1,462 billion. From 2 to 7 days, 1,290. From 8 to 90 days, basically 2 trillion. And a little over 90 days, $1.385 trillion. Okay? We're not the only ones borrowing. What's going to happen to our interest rate? Like we said, everybody needs money. Every country, every company, every hedge fund, every private equity, every private credit, they all need liquidity. And so the question is we are seeing the effects that the dollar and our bonds cannot move the way they normally move because of demands. What do you think? Tell me in the comments and like and follow.